Last week on our Tech for Business podcast, we talked about how to choose your first AI project for your business. And today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in implementation. So we're joined by Kyle, our CEO and president, and Scott, our director of strategic services. So thank you guys for coming. I thought to open it up, a little kind of an icebreaker is there anything that you are working on implementing, either AI or automation, in your own life that you're really excited about and you'd be willing to share?
My wife has a small business, a very small business, and there's a lot that we're using Gemini for in her small business. She gets all kinds of inquiries about schedules and what the business does, and when new classes will be, and what types of things are coming. And so she's working, having Gemini craft answers to a lot of the very common questions based on all the emails that come to the info at email box. And so that's one thing. It's kind of my personal life, but it's another segment of my life where we're using some AI. Here we're using.
For sure. Kyle, what are you working on?
It's very cool. I mean, I've been doing a lot similar to, a little bit similar to what Scott said, but side within building a number of Copilot agents and Gemini gems and all those things to be very, task oriented. So I have some identifying little tasks, things like, so I have a gem that will do, a branding of the document to the CIT branding side of those. So if you have a document that comes in, or if I'm pulling something out of a LLM side of it, if you're talking to LLM, you usually get good context. You have to create something, maybe you got this very vanilla side of it, and then I want it in CIT style and format side of it. I just put it in there, say apply the brand, and then voila, there we go. So just purposely kind of identifying these quick hits. I've been building a digital twin side of those. So I've been going through that process sides again, just for, I want an email to the company on the holiday. I want an email of those things, and it comes out and it sounds like me. It has my style. It has my mannerisms, the words I use and those other things. So the editing's far less, so again, brings in the essence of the way I communicate and go through those things. It has the, a lot of historical example sides built into it. So it just gets you to the finished results that much faster. And the last thing again is you don't want to just send out a bunch of AI slop. So you just want, you want it to be a personalized side of it. So I've been spending a lot of time, crafting, going through those things, and just found a very beneficial side, because now you can just, again, it starts to realize some of these productivity gains, because it's just like you can just get things produced far faster. Just kick things out. So I really been enjoying how to build those out and tune them.
Yeah, there's so much you can do. And I know we mentioned this topic today is so broad, and it is difficult because everyone is at a different stage. But when we bring it back to businesses, and when they're kind of starting this implementation, these projects, what are some major roadblocks that you guys see when they try to get started?
Something that I see that's really common is just a lot of data still isn't as unified as it needs to be in order for any one of the very modern AI tools to be, as effective as everybody wants it to be out of the box. So a great example of this is we still have a fair amount of customers that have what I call the legacy file share, right? So this is the server in the closet that has the F drive, right? And the AI tools are not going to have the same ability to use and examine that data as they are, for example, SharePoint, right? especially when we talk about Copilot, which is a very common tool that we are using and helping customers implement. Copilot's going to do a great job of analyzing, having access to data that lives in SharePoint, OneDrive, or Teams. But that data that lives in that legacy file share drive, it's not going to have the same effectiveness. And you're going to experience some roadblock there, right? Because you want to get all these insights from all this data that you have, but it's in this old capacity. And so, one of the things that we're doing to that regard is helping organizations with that migration. They're coming to us with the AI question. And one of the answers is, well, where's all of the data today? And if it's still in the legacy file share, let's talk about the next degree of maturity for that data, for how the company's using and consuming that data, because that ultimately is connected to AI's ability to reference it.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Data is king on AI. I mean, 100%. Being able to curate and get your data so it's AI friendly. I mean, that I just was reading an article on Cursor AI, who writes. They basically provide a development platform that's AI driven, that's based on VS Code. They've been very popular in the last couple years, specifically this year. They've exploded side of it. But the article is focused on that they literally scrapped their content management system because it was legacy and they couldn't use AI against it. So they just, in the thought process, they just said, we're no longer going to use a content management system because that was built for people. We want AI to use it. AI doesn't need it, so we're going to get rid of it. And they literally scrapped it just they're basically adapting their process and their platforms to be AI native. Then they're able to realize the automation sides of it, because their mandate is that AI must be used within those processes. They must automate and do the process side of it, is the way they looked at it. Which I think is insightful. What's going to come, as people start to shift, is to stop thinking in terms of how people use the data. And if you start thinking on, how AI could use the data, you need to structure it differently. And you need to take a little different approach to kind of maximize those value sides on it. And I'm confident that the platforms are going to adapt and provide these things, i.e. the Microsoft and the Googles, and those things are already, moving to make those things more real. But that's definitely going to need to be in part of people's mindset sides of those. Is if you really want to start to mature and maximize those things, you need to start thinking differently about how all those things come together. And that was just a good use case example of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, cleaning up your data feels like kind of a daunting task. It's like when you're talking to a little kid and you're saying you can play outside when your room is clean. Like, how do you avoid that? That's a little bit what it feels like. How do you avoid the getting bogged down by all this cleanup when there's these new shiny tools that you can't really use, or you can't use to the fullest without having that cleanup first?
Well, I mean, I think you can use AI to leverage those sides of it. Just bring your most relevant data into context side is ultimately kind of how you have to do it. Again, you're going to have a lot of legacy information, those things. You just may need to consider excluding it, from the AI context side of it. Because again, if it's not adding a lot of value side, don't bring it in. You're just going to bog it down. So, you can forego necessarily probably cleaning if you just want to leave it. Say it's there. We'll search for it if we want it. But we're gonna start building it the right way and bringing in the most relevant data into the sides of it and build it over time. And that's where I think most businesses ultimately will land side with it, is rather than spending the expensive time and effort to go back and try to identify years and years of history and information side. If you haven't accessed it in 10 years, I mean, you pretty safe. You probably don't need that data. I mean, it's kind of like when you move multiple times, the boxes you never opened at some point, you say that probably just go to Goodwill because we moved here 10 years ago and we still haven't opened that box. So I don't think we really need that box. Obviously doesn't have a
Right.
lot of need. The data stuff is probably not that much
Yep.
different.
And then once you've identified what you want, then the AI can clean it once it gets there. Right. Once we have data
Yes.
in, again, I'm going to kind of keep going back to the SharePoint OneDrive Teams example coming from the legacy file share because we're dealing with that very often. It's a very common challenge. Once we've got that data in a place where, AI you can take advantage of the tool, then the tool can do it. Right. But yeah, there is a bit of a question. How much of this do we want to keep? How much of it do we want to donate?
Right.
Yeah, destroy, get rid of.
For multiple reasons, that may be the case. But the other piece that I think when people are looking at the blockers that can get you going is the training aspect. For the most part, I think the AI side is a human. The AI enablement is a human HR aspect side. It's the unique merging of these AI enablement sides, the unique merging of human resources and IT side of it, because you're bringing technology in, but you're applying it to the people, and the people need to be aware how to use it. They got to be trained on it. They got to understand how to use it to enhance their deliveries and ability sides within those sides of it. So it's again, I think organizations got to look at it in a unique lens. It's not something I would advocate that you give to your IT department. I would not advocate you give it alone to the HR department. I think it needs to be a strong collaborative grouping and leadership side of senior leadership, human resources, your data security and compliance, if you have those, and then your IT department. They all need to be at the table, and they got to bring it all together to have true success. If you just leave it to one department, I think which we've seen, I think some companies struggle with it because you can't just assign licenses and say, here you go. Now let's show me the 40% return. That's just not realistic. That's unlikely going to deliver.
Yeah, to that degree,
success.
it's not unlike any other tool, and that's really what we're looking at it as is another tool. It just happens to be
Exactly.
a very, very advanced tool that is, like the Swiss Army knife concept here is tenfold, right, with respect to what we can do, but governance and training and buy-in and those things on the front end, and identifying what the business objective, what the outcome should be, will help foster success along the way, right? Identifying those things on the front end, and having a plan for training, having a plan for communication throughout the organization. What does this mean for us? This is why this is exciting for us, right? Kind of the why, how, and what framework, right? For communication, I think is a great way to do it. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what it means for us is a great framework to communicate throughout the organization. Ultimately, what any new tool will deliver, right?
I love that. And you're leading into kind of my next question, which is this human part of, AI and automation. When you're talking about the why and the how and the what, I mean, who owns that? Should it always be the business leader? I mean, tools are often specifically owned by an IT department. I mean, how do you decide who's helming that journey?
Well, I think you're going to need to elect somebody in the organization that's going to ultimately, own those sides of it. Again, you're starting to see the formation of a chief AI officer sides of those. In small organizations, again, somebody just wear the hat of those things, but ultimately kind of take the main governance sides of those to then bring in the other teams to collaborate together. Whether you choose that to be from the HR side or the IT side. I think every organization is kind of just going to need to identify that person and champion in their organization side of it to primarily own it, but then bring in the collaborative side to bring it all together.
At a departmental level, AI isn't going to be one thing for the entire company. It's not going to be one thing for one, it'll be multiple things. It's going to solve multiple challenges throughout the organization. And part of that is identifying, where there's business process inefficiency, right? Where can we benefit from what AI can deliver, and understanding, what it can deliver and where the benefit exists is going to be part of that. And so I think that the who owns it in part is there's a visionary component, right? Our objectives as a business over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, those business objectives are these things. And working with a partner that can help identify where those business objectives can be connected to a technology element like AI is an important piece. And so if you can identify within the organization that there's benefit to a particular department, then there's, you start to inject some AI knowledge into that department and the management of that department, right? Because we're ultimately not going to have a single owner, right? Everybody in the organization that's connected to this will have to understand how that tool is impacting their piece of the business, right? And it's not like an application per se. It's not an ERP. It's not an accounting application. It's not a sales application, right? There's broad impact that the tool can be used for to benefit a particular department or across how departments interact.
There's so many use cases within those individual department sides of it. And again, that's why it's incredibly important to collaborate and bring in each department head and let them help identify. But, again, to circle back to the training, they don't know what they don't know. So until you train them and educate them sides and I think an organization sides, if you go on, your first 30 days, you want to identify your internal champions within the organization sides of those across the org, and then have them help to identify those use cases within the organization side of it that are, your early project sides to get through those things and get the quit finding those easier to have success with initiative sides of it. Kind of the examples like Scott and I threw out, those things again are not super technical side of it. A little bit in advance, but just a little bit of training. It's not difficult, and people can get in and start experimenting with, and doesn't require anybody to be heavy technical side of it. And again, things start to move, and then you can identify more advanced ways once you build a comfort with it and you start to connect the dots a little more about how it works, what success requires with AI to get the better success side of it, and then it'll start to evolve to move into bigger and better returns.
I think the exciting thing about that is this isn't like the traditional implementation of technology resources. Like, I was just having a conversation with someone about this today. 10 years ago, if we needed to be able to get lots of interesting insight and data from a source like a SQL server, for example, or our customer would come to us and say, we need an SQL server. And so we would do the technology work to build an SQL server. And then their third-party vendor most likely was a part of this process and would connect their data source to the SQL server, and then the user would be able to use an application and get data out of it. And that process, depending on how large of an application and how many servers and things, this is months worth of work to implement the foundational technology elements you need to start getting some benefit. AI is going to be dramatically faster than that, right? Because the tool set exists and the big 3 or 4 players at work have already built all of that out, right? And now connecting your own business process and your own data is the time frame to ROI is dramatically less than it was with traditional technology resources, servers and application vendors and all of that.
Yeah, it's moving at a lightning speed. I mean, and again, it's not it's not a technology rollout. There's it's its own unique aspect side of it. And I think you will struggle if you treat it as such, because it's not a one-trick pony. It has a lot of unique capabilities, and it's ever evolving side with it. So it's a cultural enablement shift, for all the way from, again, how you look at how you manage your data, how you orchestrate your data, how you train your people, how you culturally, enable your people to use it, how you select your platforms, all those other things. So, and it's not going to happen overnight. So I think it requires patience, and it requires, again, a lot of collaboration across the whole organization to really start to adapt and make use of it. That said, I mean, the statistical numbers that are coming out though are very evident that the organizations that are doing it are compounding their returns on their productivity side of it, and they're reinvesting it back into those sides, and then they're going faster and faster and faster because they're evolving out of that. If your organization is not doing it, you're going to fall farther and farther and farther behind, the point you may not be able to catch up, because they're going to outpace you at such a rapid side. So it's not perfect technology by any means. It needs to be understood and controlled, but you do need to get moving. It's no surprise to me that most of the organization, there's a lot of organizational leaders, CEOs, and those other sides that are driving this initiative side of it, because it is for that reason. It's people are cautious and employees are cautious side, but from a business aspect, there is a business survivability component to it, and a risk to the business side of it, that they have a responsibility to ensure they're moving forward with. And then each of those leaders has to understand how to motivate their own people and how to adapt that into their business side of it. I would not advocate to just bring AI and then find a solution for it. You need to have the problems first, so you need to assess, and again, hear from your people, finding those opportunities. And it takes discussions with people. It may take outside consulting to come in and help identify those sides of it. Find the problems, see where AI can help, and just have the openness to say, can AI help us with those sides? Ask those questions, sides of those, and then start moving. And by all means, just start training a core set of people in the organization to go through. And a lot of this will start to grow organically on its own. The results will show. If they're trained and they're using it and they're experiment, they're going to see results, and they're going to do more, and they're going to do more, they're going to do more, and they're going to talk, and they're going to share, and things will start to grow. Just be a little patient. Don't come in and try to solve the biggest problem in the company with AI as your first project. That's probably not a good.
There's a
And
Sorry. There's a great
Okay.
story that just came out of the Navy. And if you do some quick Googling, you'll find it. But the Navy spent like $500 million on what they called ship OS, a shipbuilding operating system, to manage what they said was a very data intensive process to use AI and machine learning to manage their shipbuilding and repair process, right? What's interesting about the story is it's echoing what we're saying today, which is identify a problem, right? Identify where you have data intensive, data complex challenges, and do the necessary, put in the necessary work on the front end to do the data analysis, to do the business process analysis, to identify a challenge, and then ultimately use a tool to solve that. But the story about the Navy is an interesting one. If you get some time, good light reading.
See if I can find it and link it in our show notes. But that feels like such a beautiful place to end. I was going to ask, how do we start 2026 with success? And it sounds like, cleaning up your data, identifying the problems, and then training your team.
Yeah, I could probably go on for hours, but those if you're doing those things, you start there. That you're making the right moves. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this topic, please let us know. Like, subscribe, or reach out to us at info@cit-net.com or head out to our website, cit-net.com/podcast. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode.